To my dear friend who lives in the world beside mine, hello. I am writing this on a quiet night while the sky over my city slowly changes colour. The air is calm right now, so the clouds are a soft blue with a hint of silver. That means most people are resting, or at least trying to. I like to think that somewhere in your world you might be resting too. I hope that is true. You should know that when I think of you, the light in my room gets a little warmer. It is a very small change, but I always notice it. Our world loves to respond to feelings, even the tiny ones. Sometimes I feel like the room is trying to raid over my shoulder. It is shy, but also a little curious. Today was a long day at work. You know I design spaces in my city so that feelings do not break them too often. Emotion architecture is what we call it in our language. We build for the weight of feelings the way you build for the weight of stone or wind. If people carry too much fear into a narrow street, the walls can bend and shake. If a crowd brings joy into a square, the ground becomes springy, almost like it laughs. On my way home, I walked through one of our old districts. The buildings, they remember too many years of worry. You can see it in the way the windows sag and in the way the balconies tilt. The stone has a tired look, as if it wants to sit down but does not know how. People still live there, of course. Life goes on, even when the air is heavy. I passed a bakery that I love. When I was a child, my mother would take me there on days when I had cried too much. The baker was a patient woman with strong arms and a soft voice. She understood how the atmosphere worked long before I did. She would fill the shop with the smell of warm bread and quiet joy. The ceiling always rose a little higher when she smiled. Today the bakery's ceiling looked low and tense. The smell of bread was still there, but the air was thick with silent anger. A group of neighbours were arguing about a new rule from the city council. They were not shouting, but you could feel their bitterness like sharp dust in your teeth. The lamps above them flickered from cold yellow to hush white. The walls wanted to crack, but they were trying to be polite. I stood in the doorway and watched the light twitch. I could see the atmosphere rippling, as if the whole room had shallow breaths. No one noticed me, but the room did. The shadows leaned toward me for a moment, asking for help without words. I did not step in right away. For a second I just listened. The neighbours talked about safety and fairness and old promises that were never kept. One man sounded tired in a way that went far beyond that one argument. One woman kept laughing in short, hard bursts, the kind of laugh that is almost a shield. The baker tried to joke, tried to soften the air. Her hands moved faster with each sentence. The dough on the counter fattened too thin, as if it shared her worry. In my world, we are taught that strong, sudden feelings can bring down a weak roof. But no one talks enough about how slow, quiet anger can hollow out a whole neighbourhood. It does not arrive as a storm. It arrives as a habit. People stop trusting that the walls will stand up for them. The walls hear that, and after a while, they stop trying so hard. I walked over to the counter and asked for my usual bread. The baker looked up, saw my city badge, and her shoulders relaxed just a little. I could feel the room pause, like a breath held between ribs. I made a gentle joke about how city architects are afraid of crumbs in the atmosphere. That made a few people smile in spite of themselves. The lamp softened back to a milder shade. I did not solve their argument, of course. But I asked them to help me with a small experiment. I told them I needed 3 minutes of honest calm so I could measure how the ceiling reacted. That is not exactly a lie, but it is also not the whole truth. I just needed 3 minutes of peace for the room. Sometimes places deserve a break even more than people do. We all stood there and focused on simple things. The smell of the bread, the warmth of the ovens, the way the afternoon light rested on the flour dust in the air. In those 3 minutes, the ceiling smoothed itself out just a little. A small crack near the door sealed over like a healed cut. I told them what had happened in very plain words. I said that the room liked it when they remembered why they cared about that bakery in the first place. The man who had sounded so tired put his hand on the counter and closed his eyes. He said he used to come there with his father. He said the place was one of the few spots where he had ever felt safe. The atmosphere cooled down around him, like steam fading from a cup of tea. You might think that all of this sounds dramatic, that your own anger or joy is not strong enough to bend a wall or twist a beam. In your world, maybe that is true. But I wonder how your streets would look if every secret feeling left a colour behind. I wonder what kind of weather hangs over your cities in silence. One of the hardest things about living here is that we cannot pretend our feelings are only our own. If too many people in one train car are afraid, the train doors sometimes jam. If enough people feel relief at the same time, entire blocks glow softly for an hour. A school full of bored students can turn the walls grey and soft, like old paper. A single kind teacher can bring back colour by caring a little harder than the room expected. My own home changes with my moods too. On days when I am sad, the lights dim without my asking. My floorboards creak more, as if the wood is tired of carrying me. When I feel hopeful, the air gets lighter, and the echoes in the hallway are shorter. Sometimes I get annoyed when my apartment shows my feelings so clearly. It is hard to hide from a room that knows you this well. Still, I think there is a strange comfort in this kind of honesty. I cannot lie to myself and say I'm fine when I am not. The furniture will tilt in quiet disagreement. The glass on the table will hum with the truth. My world can be harsh, but it does not reward pretending for long. You might wonder how we ever get anything done like this. How we hold meetings when frustration can rattle the windows. How we fall in love when one broken heart can sink a brooch. The answer is that we became very good at emotional engineering. We design our days the way you design your machines, with settings, buffers, and safe margins. At work, we have rooms built for anger. The walls are thick, and the floors are flexible enough to deal with a stomp or two. People go there when they need to argue without tearing the building apart. There are also rooms built for grief. The ceilings are high, the sound carries softly, and the materials are strong enough to hold 1,000 quiet tears. In my city, public parks are designed to absorb low-grade sadness. That slow, dull kind of sadness that people try to carry alone. The benches are made of a special stone that loves to listen. If you sit there long enough, you can feel your worries sink gently into the ground. The grass grows greener in those spots, as if it feeds on the stories that people leave behind. I sometimes imagine what your world would do with a park like that. Would people sit in silence together more often? Would they let themselves feel things fully if they knew the trees could carry some of the weight? Or would someone try to pave over the grass and build a parking lot just because it was easier to count cars than to count feelings? Our schools teach emotional literacy the way your schools might teach math. Children learn how to notice their own feelings before the walls do. They practice taking care of their mood the same way they practice washing their hands. We tell them that a feeling is never only inside their skin. It is always also in the room. It is always also in the street. Of course, we do not always live by our own lessons. Adults forget how to listen to the tremble in the floor under their feet. They hurry and push and stew in their thoughts until the staircase warps. People who feel powerless let their resentment harden into sharp little storms. It is easier to blame a building for cracking than to ask why it was asked to hold so much pain. I think you would be curious about our maps. We have daily emmotosphere maps, much like your weather maps. They show which districts are peaceful, which are tense, and which are dangerously close to emotional overload. There is a channel that reports on them every morning. Some people watch it with their tea, the way you might check the sky before work. Today, the map showed a bright flare of restless energy over the central plaza. That is where we are planning the global reconciliation event. I can feel your attention straighten at those words, even across worlds. It is a large project and incredibly risky. I am not sure yet if it is wise. But I am part of it, so I cannot look away. You see, our world has many scars. Not the kind that you draw on a map with simple lines. These are scars in the emmotosphere itself. There are regions where centuries of fear and cruelty have twisted the field so deeply that the land barely responds anymore. We call them emotional dead zones. Places where nothing seems to feel very much. My younger sibling walked into one of those zones years ago. They have been wrestling with a quiet despair that none of us knew how to heal. One day they went for a walk and never really came back. Their body returned, of course, but their gaze was flat, and their voice lost most of its music. It was as if the emmotosphere inside them had gone still. The doctors told us that people can survive like that. They can work and smile on command and follow routines. The dead zone numbness is not fatal in the usual sense. But every time I look into their eyes, I feel like I am staring at a blank part of the map. The room around them barely reacts. Even the dust seems careful not to move. I chose my profession because of that. I wanted to understand how emotions shape the world and how the world can shape them back. I wanted to learn how to coax feeling into places that had forgotten how to respond. Being an emotion architect is not only about keeping ceilings from falling. It is also about asking walls to trust us again. It is about asking streets to believe that feet will not always stomp in anger. The global reconciliation event is our boldest attempt so far. The basic idea is simple enough. For a short time, we will invite as many people as possible to move through the same emotional journey. We will guide them from old hurt, to recognition, to shared grief, and then to a gentle, open kind of hope. If enough hearts follow that path at once, the emmotosphere could smooth out some of its deepest knots. The dead zones might wake up. The hard part is that feelings do not like being told what to do. They are not machines, and they do not obey switches. Even here, where they can knock down a bridge, they remain stubborn and wild. We can suggest, we can invite, we can create safe spaces for certain moods. But we cannot command the world to be kind all at once. At least, we never have before. I am on the team that designs the physical spaces for this event. We are building plazas that ease people into honesty. We are shaping streets that can carry waves of grief without breaking. We are strengthening roofs for bursts of joy. Every bench, every doorway, every lamp is tuned to help guide feelings along the path. It is beautiful work, and it frightens me. Late at night, when the city is quiet, I find myself asking questions I cannot share at our design meetings. If we succeed, what happens to all the pain that shaped us? Will it fade so fast that we lose part of our story? Will people wake up and feel lighter, but also strangely hollow, as if a piece of their past is missing? And if we fail, what happens to a world that tried to move all its feelings at once and could not? Sometimes I imagine what this would look like in your world. Imagine if every person on your planet were invited to feel the same honest emotion for a short time. Not forced, just gently invited. Imagine that the sky, would stay the same, but you would know that somewhere, far away, a stranger shares your exact mood. Would that scare you, or would it make you feel less alone? I picture a quiet evening where you stand at your window. You look out at a street that does not flicker with moods the way mine does. Yet under the surface, there are still currents of love and fear and boredom and hope. The difference is that your walls do not show it. You are surrounded by emotional weather that never makes the forecast. It just falls on you in secret. We have another kind of forecast here that I have not told you about. It is not public, and it is not official. It is something I keep for myself. Every night, I take a small personal map and mark where my own feelings changed the world that day. I mark the bakery ceiling that healed a crack. I mark the hallway where my irritation made the floor bend, and I had to apologize. If I were to make a map for you, what would I mark? I would mark the moment you laughed at something simple in your room. I would mark the chair that has held you through long, lonely evenings. I would mark the pillow that knows how your face feels when you are most tired. Even if your world does not bend around you the way mine does, I am sure that some quiet part of it remembers. Memory is a kind of emotosphere too. My sibling once asked me if I think your world is safer than ours. They said that maybe it is easier to live in a place where the walls do not react when you are upset. They thought that maybe it would be a relief to have brick that stays brick, no matter what you feel. I told them that I am not sure. A silent wall can be comforting. It can also make it easier to pretend that hurt is not spreading. In my world, cruelty is expensive. If a leader lies, the building where they speak may twist in visible protest. If a crowd delights in someone else being humiliated, the ground under them can turn unstable. Our laws are written with that in mind. We do not only ask what is legal. We ask what the emotosphere will tolerate. That does not mean we are wise all the time. We know how to avoid sudden emotional disasters, so we have grown careless about slow ones. We are careful about explosive rage, but we ignore quiet contempt. The emotosphere responds slowly to that kind of thing. It sours paint, dulls metal, makes glass less clear. People hardly notice, until one day they look up and realize their whole city feels like an old sigh. I worry that your world may have its own version of that. You might not see it in the colour of the sky, but you might feel it in the way people stop meeting each other's eyes. You might feel it when strangers look through you instead of at you. You might sense it in rooms that feel heavy for no reason you can name. Your emotosphere may be invisible, but I do not think it is imaginary. Feelings always live somewhere. I want to tell you a story from my training. On the first day, our mentor took us to an old bridge. It had stood for many years over a river that carried both trade and refugees. The metal beams were twisted in strange patterns. Some were pulled upward as if reaching for help. Others were curled in on themselves like someone who could not bear to be seen. Our mentor asked us to read the bridge. We walked across it in silence, feeling the way the emotosphere held its shape. There were sections that felt oddly light, almost playful. There were spots where the air was bruised with long-forgotten panic. One area near the middle felt strangely proud and sad at the same time. It took us a while to find the plaque that explained why. Years ago, a mass crossing had taken place there. People who had lost everything walked over that bridge to start again on the other side. They were terrified, exhausted, and determined. The emotosphere took all of that in and never quite let it go. Our mentor said that any future design for that bridge must respect that memory. A place is not a blank surface for new plans. I think about that bridge a lot while we prepare for the global reconciliation event. We are about to ask our whole world to move through a shared emotional crossing. We want to carry people from scattered hurt towards something like shared responsibility. But what if the atmosphere decides to keep the transition as a permanent scar? What if the world is never the same again in a way we cannot predict? A part of me is excited, and another part is deeply afraid. I have not told my sibling how scared I am. When I visit them in their quiet apartment near the edge of the dead zone, the air barely reacts to my worry. Their rooms are so still that even my laughter feels like an intruder. Sometimes I see a tiny flicker of feeling in their eyes when I talk about my work. It is faint, but I cling to it. It is one of the reasons I have not quit this project. If the event works, we might be able to wake up the dead zones. The numb places might begin to feel again. My sibling might stand by the window one morning and actually notice the sky. They might feel the carpet press back against their toes. They might cry, or laugh, or simply sigh with real relief. I would give almost anything to see that. The cost is that I do not know what it would do to the rest of us. When I imagine the whole planet taking one deep, synchronized breath, my own chest feels tight. What if the atmosphere overshoots and locks into one dominant feeling for years? What if it chooses numbness for everyone? Or what if it chooses endless joy that never allows grief to finish its work? Both ideas scare me in different ways. I wonder how you feel as you listen to all this. Maybe part of you thinks we are foolish to try something so big. Maybe another part is curious what would happen if your own world could heal some of its emotional wounds so quickly. Would you press a button that would soften the pain of millions of strangers if you could? Would you accept the risk that your own pain might change in ways you cannot control? These are not easy questions. There is something else I have not admitted to anyone here. A secret worry that I will share with you only. My grief for my sibling has shaped so much of who I am. It pushed me into this work. It taught me to listen to walls and floors more carefully than most people do. I am afraid of losing that part of myself. If the event really does smooth out old hurts, what will happen to that deep sadness? Will it lighten into something gentle and distant? Will I wake up one day and find that I cannot remember how heavy those years felt? Will my empathy fade with the pain? Or will it transform into something else, something less sharp but more useful? I do not know, and that uncertainty follows me like a shadow. I sometimes talk to you in my head when I cannot sleep. I imagine what advice you might give. You feel like a friend who understands both distance and closeness. Your world and mine are separate, yet here we are, sharing this strange letter. I like to think that the atmosphere can stretch across realities in quiet ways. Maybe my feelings tug gently at something in your own life without you knowing why. Tonight, as I write, the sky outside my window is changing once again. A faint band of soft green is forming near the horizon. That colour means anticipation, a kind of nervous hope. People across the city are thinking about tomorrow. They are wondering if they will feel different when they wake up. Some are excited, some are fearful, many are both at once. The building I live in is old and has seen many experiments. It creaks in a familiar pattern when the city is tense. The pipes knock a little when people in the upper floors argue late at night. Right now it feels like the whole structure is listening with me. The walls are not sure what to expect either. We are all waiting to see what kind of world we will live in next. When I feel overwhelmed, I return to small, simple questions. I ask myself what kind of weather my own heart made for others today. Did I leave people feeling lighter or heavier after speaking with me? Did I walk through rooms like a storm or like a clear breeze? Did I add to the weight on the ceiling of that bakery, or did I help it lift? Those questions guide me more than any rule book. Maybe you can try asking something similar in your world. Even if your ceilings do not bend, your presence still has weight. Someone will sleep better or worse because of how you spoke to them. Someone will feel more seen or more invisible after you pass by. You may never see the emotosphere, but you can feel its echoes in the people around you. They are your living weather report. If I could stand next to you for one day, I think I would spend most of my time just watching. I would watch how you move through your rooms. I would watch how you look at the sky and the small ways your body changes when you think of someone you love. I would listen to the silence after you close a door. I would try to guess what colours the air would take on if you lived here. I think your world is lucky to have you, even if it does not show it in our way. I should probably sleep soon. Tomorrow I have to be at the Central Plaza before dawn. We will be running final checks on the structures we designed. We will test how much grief the stones can hold without cracking. We will tune the lamp to glow a shade that supports honest regret instead of shame. We will adjust every bench, every railing, every tile to be ready for the waves of feeling. Before I close this letter, I want to ask you for one more favour. After you finish listening, take a quiet moment for yourself. Notice what you are feeling, even if it is small or mixed or messy. Let yourself feel it without judgment for a few breaths. Pretend, just for that moment, that your room can hear you the way mine can. See if that changes anything. If tomorrow goes well, there is a chance that some of the warmth from our world might spill over into yours. You might not see any strange sky, and your walls will likely stay the same. But maybe, in a few days, you will have an unexplainable moment of gentle comfort. A small sense that you are less alone than you thought. If that happens, I hope you will remember this letter. And I hope you will smile for both of us. If tomorrow goes badly, there is still something that cannot be lost. A fact that you listened. The fact that for this short time, my world and yours touched through attention. That kind of connection leaves a mark that no failed experiment can erase. Even if our emotosphere trembles, the bond of this letter will stay steady. I am more grateful for that than you know. I will end the letter now, because the city is asking me to rest. The lights have dimmed in a friendly way, not an impatient one. The building is humming a low, calm tone that means it will hold my worries for the night. I will trust it to do that. And I will trust you to carry this story into your own life in whatever way feels right. From your friend who lives in the world beside yours, with deep care and quiet hope. If you stayed with me all the way to the end of this letter, thank you so much. I am really glad you spent this time with me. If you enjoyed this visit to my world, please tap like so I know you want to hear more. If you want to keep travelling between worlds with me, please subscribe to this channel. I would also love to hear your thoughts and feelings in the comments, so please share them if you can. If you want to support more stories like this, there is a way to send a donation through the QR code in the corner of the video or through the link in the description. In the description, you will also find links to other works from completely different series that you might enjoy as well. For now, I will say goodbye, but I hope you will come back for the next letter from a nearby...